Now.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who are joining us from different time zones or different countries and states. Welcome to this fourth session of HLS Teams Week, which is today we'll be covering more of the use case discussion. And I'm your host today, Jaspreet Dhamija, joining from Portland, Oregon. Presenter for today is our team's guru, Srini Surendranath. And this broadcast is broadcasted by none other than Mike Gannotti. So just a couple of housekeeping items and for today. It's this event is brought to you by Microsoft Healthcare and Life Sciences Group. Please do visit us at aka.ms/HLS blog. And we'll have all of the materials from today's sessions as well as before on the blog, that is aka.ms/HLS blog. And some of the other things, we encourage our attendees to ask questions. So, please go into the question and answer panel and ask as many questions as you want. All of the questions are moderated, so we'll be checking that at the back end, answering as we go, or maybe towards the end as time permits. And also, we would love to know from where you are joining us. So, send us a shout out in the Q&A panel itself with your name, your state, country, which organization, whatever information you want to provide. And lastly, at the conclusion of this session, again, the webcast would be recorded and all of that would be posted in the aka.ms/HLS blog with all the resources. So now let me show you how you can engage in the Q&A panel. So on the top right, and in the next slide. So on the top right, you will see, this chat-like button with a question mark on it. And if you click on it, then it will show on the next slide. It will open up a chat window. Basically, that's where you can ask your questions and it would be moderated and answered by us. So this is how it will look. And please send us shout outs again. On to the next slide. And we'll post a link, during the conversation as well as afterwards, which has like 3 question surveys. So if you don't mind doing that, that would be great. Now on to our presentation for today. Srini, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Jaspreet. Appreciate you setting the stage here, and also thank you so much, Michael, for hosting this session. I wanted to just recap what's happened so far in this past week. We had a chance on Monday to walk you through some of the overall capabilities of Teams for health and life sciences, some of the use cases, some of the capabilities that we're developing specifically to support use cases and scenarios. Also, we kind of talked about some of the new announcements in Teams. So hopefully that was a informative time for you. And then I think the last 2 days hopefully have also been equally informative for you, as you've had a chance to talk about change management, adoption, usage of Teams within your organization. We're going to shift a little bit now, and we're going to start going deeper into the capabilities of Teams. So what we're going to cover today are all of the different aspects of collaboration. Collaboration from a communication standpoint. I'm not going to go very deep into that, but I wanted to show you a few things at a high level. Then we'll walk into some of the different ways you can engage with content, documents, dashboards, other insights, other investments you've made within your organization. Then we'll talk a little bit about how do you understand context of when someone's working or not, context of shifts and schedules within the scheduling and shifts module within Teams. And then we'll go into more about dashboards, and I'll start to show you some dashboards and some use cases, specifically in healthcare, but these are relevant to all kinds of use cases where the notion of a dashboard is really so that you can share insight, but that insight should help drive action and engagement. And so we'll start talking about how you can operationalize that within your organization. And today, most of what we're going to do is going to be very demo heavy. So I hope you're ready, because we're just going to dive into a demo tenant and just start showing you what all of that looks like. Before we dive into all of those demos, what I wanted to do is first frame this conversation again where we started on Monday, which is that you may have been familiar with this view of Office, of all the different apps and tools that are part of the Office platform. And so many of you, when I talk to many people and we talk about Office, people are really familiar with Outlook and email, and people are really familiar with the authoring and co-authoring tools with Office, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. They're probably less familiar with and less aware of all of the other aspects of Office, like OneDrive and SharePoint, the integrated portals, the document collaboration, the Power BI, the analytics, and a lot of the other ancillary apps that are part of the Office platform that you get as part of it. So things like Planner, things like Power Apps and Flow, and items like Sway. And so there are a lot of capabilities as well that are part of the Office platform that many people haven't used to its extent, or may even not be aware that it exists in its capability. So what we've actually tried to do to make this simpler and easier to digest, because one of the real thoughts behind what we're doing is that if we can bring a lot of these capabilities into one unified platform, that if we started with a platform that had all the certification and met a lot of the compliance needs that you needed to across health and life sciences, and we made that pervasive through the platform, then it really allows us to bring a single pane of glass, one digital hub called Teams, that allows you to engage with all of the other aspects of Microsoft Office. So you can get the power of Flow and the power of Forms and the power of Planner and the power of access to documents and OneDrive and sharing and co-authoring and co-editing and Power BI, all viewed inside this one simple compliant digital hub called Teams. Now, that alone by itself would be quite good if we could bring all the Microsoft tools into one way of being able to view them, which we have in Teams. But what actually makes this even more powerful is that in addition to the Microsoft assets, we also enable all of the Azure frameworks, from the bot framework and the adaptive cards and the Fire API server and the event-based architecture that drives triggering of notifications and triggering of actions and triggering of engagement within the Teams platform, also to be enabled. So now you have not only the power of Office, but you have the entire power of the Azure cloud capabilities as well. In addition, we've also made it possible to be able to bring in the power of the Dynamics platform, the entire Power Platform, the Healthcare Accelerator, the customer service and the field service capabilities. So now we truly have, across the clouds of Microsoft, one platform through which you can engage most of the work that you need to do, whether that is collaboration, communication, sharing, co-authoring, or engaging with line of business applications and events and alerting platforms that you've built within your organization. So this is really what we're talking about. And so this is what we're going to demo and walk through and dive into very shortly here. So without any further delay, what I want to do is jump into the demo. But I want to take a quick pause and ask, do we have any questions or thoughts or comments that have come across as we just reviewed this overview at this point? So I'll just pause there, and Jaspreet, let me know if there are any questions that have kind of come through at this point.
Thanks, Srini. No questions so far, but everybody's really excited for today's content. And I would just like to give some shout outs. We have people from all over US, from Boston, Texas, Austin, and we have people joining from Paris, France, Northern Ireland, Canada. So we have like audience from all over the world. And UK, I just saw London, UK. So yeah, no questions so far, but I think everybody's excited to learn more.
I certainly appreciate the wonderful culinary palette we have represented with the audience. So thank you for joining us from all over the world.
We did get one question in while she was talking, and he asked, and I think this is not really appropriate for this one, so I'll just throw it out there. But this is from Sarah, and she asked, any chance we could talk about SharePoint online and using it for ticketing and incidents? And I think that's a separate conversation.
It's a separate conversation, absolutely. But, you know, one thing we can kind of show a little bit is the capability to be able to bring a SharePoint portal into a Teams environment and how relatively simple that is. So if you did actually instrument a SharePoint site to be able to manage incident management and ticket management, you could actually embed that portal site or that help site into a Teams tab, and I will walk through how you can do that. So we'll address a portion of that. It is not a deep dive on SharePoint specifically, but that we can cover as a separate follow-up. Thank you for that.
That's great. I mean, this is Mike. I'm yapping, and I'll shut up after this. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we talk about with the clients is as they're coming over from a SharePoint world and they're used to doing dev, you lose nothing. All that comes over.
Yep, that's a great point. So thanks for that question. So let me get out of slides and jump right in. So let me exit this real quick, and hopefully you will be able to see my screen still here. Can you see my screen okay? And I'll assume you can. So this is my demo tenant that I have here. So you can see we built this demo tenant specifically to be a healthcare demo tenant, but realistically, it could be any demo tenant. But first, before I jump into a lot of the collaboration and content and document and so forth capabilities, what I wanted to do is just first ground everybody in what is Teams all about, right? So at the core, Teams is a persistent chat, calling and meetings platform. It's designed for that. It is built in the cloud. It is built from the ground up to deliver a robust platform for chat, calling, and voice and video. And so this is the chat construct. And so here you can see that I have several chats. I've got a chat with Dr. Josh here and Dr. Greg, and I've got some other things that are in here as well. So you'll see I've got a bot here called the IDC bot. For those of you that are in healthcare, you're familiar with the IDC-10 coding that needs to happen related to symptoms and diagnoses. And so this IDC-10 bot is a bot-based query to an Azure database that allows you very simply from a chat construct to be able to search and get data. So when we talk about collaboration, we're going to talk about documents, but in addition to actually posting documents, the other part of collaboration is how do you make it simple and accessible for people in natural language to be able to ask questions and then get answers for those things. And so we'll talk a little bit about bots within the chat construct as well. So in this construct of a chat, we have the simple ability to send chat messages to people. I'll just do a hello message. But in addition to just sending messages to people, I can also actually do @mentions of specific individuals who I want to call out for attention, just like you would in many other chat platforms or chat capabilities. So here I'm actually saying hello, but I'm actually specifically @mentioning Dr. Josh. In addition to @mentioning Dr. Josh, I also have the ability to escalate the priority of this message and annotate and document and manipulate the way this looks. So I can highlight text. I can highlight it a different color. I can change the font size. I can manipulate the text format. I can do bulleting. I can actually construct this in a way that looks more documented as opposed to just plain a chat platform. And in addition, I can also escalate the priority here. So I can also mark this message urgent, which adds this red banner, moves it to the top of the activity feed, and highlights this as an important conversation for someone. So just some simple capabilities within the chat itself to not only facilitate chatting, but also to facilitate the ability to format and construct your message in such a way. So a lot of times it's not just a chat message, it's actually a message with a bullet point set of options or things that we want to consider as a team. And so very easy to be able to document it in a way that makes it easy. And then, of course, we also have the ability to embed Jiffies into messages. You can search on a particular topic and embed Jiffies. You can add the smiley faces, the emojis, the icons that you want to embed in there. You also have the ability to add stickers. So you want to say good morning, hello, oh yeah. You can post those kinds of messages and enable that kind of capability simply from this chat messaging platform. And so you can do this in a chat with someone. You can also do the same thing within the notion of a team and a channel. So core to Teams is this notion that outside of one-on-one and group chats and multiple kinds of chat conversations, we also have this construct of teams and channels. So people belong to a team, and within the team, there are channels that segment the kind of conversation that you're having. So within this team, I have an example here of radiology, and actually radiology is a good example because we all have been to different kinds of doctors, and many of us have had an x-ray taken. So we've been to a radiology department, and you can kind of see the kinds of departments that could, or the channels of conversation or threads of conversation that could fit within a radiology kind of department. You've got general, you've got home visits log, you've got an imaging center that's managing a set of tasks. There's a nurse's station, there's a specific ward that's dedicated to this. There's an x-ray and diagnostics kind of conversation thread. So you can have multiple conversation threads. And then what we announced at Enterprise Connect is that we're working on and will be delivering in the future the ability to do private channels, so that in addition to having a team for radiology, I can have a specific subset of members that are part of an x-ray and diagnostics channel as an option, so that I can have a private set of conversations within the team for a subset of clinicians, like maybe just the doctors, or this is a research group and we're going to have a subset of people who are kind of the foremost researchers who want to have a dialogue that's independent of the rest of the team. And so we'll be enabling that down the road as a core capability of the channels capability within Teams. So just giving you that construct of a chat platform, the teams and the channels construct, and then of course the ability to drive meetings and also calling capabilities from the same platform. So while I'm in a chat with someone, I can very quickly also create a call or a video call with this group of people. So it's a multi-group chat. So if I go ahead and initiate a video call, it actually goes ahead and initiates a video call with multiple people. Of course, it's showing my camera here as well, which is cords in the back of my computer here. But if we ignore that, we can initiate a video call with the group very quickly and easily. I can also, if I have a one-on-one chat here, I can initiate a one-on-one call as well as I can schedule meetings for a group or a team. Equally, I can also go in here into a channel and initiate a meeting that we organize for the team. So I can do a meet now for this entire channel. So all the members of this channel can then directly be included into a meeting to be able to converse and collaborate on a particular topic. So those are just some of the constructs of that communication portion of Teams, which is kind of an underpinning component of how we collaborate, right? In order to collaborate, we have to be actually able to communicate with one another and communicate with one another around topics, around conversations, around individual discussions, and around teams and within channels. So with that, on the communication side, what I'm going to do is jump over into the document side of things. So I'm going to show a few different things related to documents. One of the things is that anytime you have a team, so in this case, the radiology team, you can see it right here next to the radiology conversations, I have files. And so these files are all files that have been uploaded into this file construct, which actually leverages SharePoint in the background. So the SharePoint site that's created that correlates with this specific team, and then it stores all the files related to this team. So I have the ability to upload files. I can upload files from my own desktop. I can upload files from my OneDrive storage, my personal OneDrive storage, as well as my corporate OneDrive storage. And then I can also upload files from SharePoint sites. So I can also look at network sites that I have access to that are SharePoint sites, and I can also access those SharePoint sites and upload documents from SharePoint sites into this storage area, and then this file storage. And I can also access these files in a SharePoint type format. So I can actually click on the SharePoint icon, and it'll actually take me to the SharePoint site that has these files in it in the SharePoint construct. So I have the ability to see this in SharePoint. It's the same files that are also persisting here within the Teams files construct. I'll just do a quick refresh on this now because I just did the launch out to the SharePoint site, and we'll let this reload real quickly. So I have the ability and the flexibility to take documents I have today, which might exist in multiple places, and I might, you know, there's often a question about how do I make the transition and migrate into a Teams construct so we can start collaborating as a team. And one of the first questions tends to be that I've got files strewn all over and I want to bring them into one cohesive construct. And so Teams natively offers this ability for you to be able to upload files and bring all of your files in to enable collaboration for the team. So in addition to uploading files, I can also actually add files from other places of storage. So I might today have files that are stored in SharePoint, as I mentioned before, or I can have them in other cloud storage providers' locations. And so I can actually link to those cloud storage provider locations and actually bring files in from there, embed them as part of this team, and now they're already embedded as part of this team. So what we often see is that within the enterprise, because of commercially available tools or what people are familiar with, that there's a fragmentation of where documentation is stored. And so you might have a SharePoint site, but people have also started to use Box. And then you also use Dropbox to share files with an external vendor party. And so now you have the ability to embed those different cloud storage sources as places that you can bring files in, and then you can bring them into a Teams construct to facilitate having all of the files associated with this team, with this discussion group, collated in one place, and to format the documents in the same place as you would have your conversations and your discussions. And so there are two ways to actually upload files. The one way, obviously, I showed you is through the upload or to add a cloud storage option. The other way is to do it in a very conversational way. So within the context of a conversation, I have the ability right here to, in addition to, as I'd mentioned, the ability to converse, I can also say, can you so I can go ahead and add a file directly with a tag and a comment and allow this file to actually specifically be uploaded directly from here, right? So I can look at some of my recent files that I've been engaging with within here. And so if I had this pane scale document and I can either share a link to that document that's already in this share, or I can upload a copy of that document. In this case, I want to upload a copy into this, so it actually pulls that file from a different part of my Teams environment and plugs it in here. And so I can go ahead and actually send this document off to this team and say, hey, I want to collaborate on this, and then go ahead and add this document here. Now, the beauty of doing it this way is that not only does it post this document here for me to collaborate with and for people to reply and communicate with, it also automatically adds it to my file repository. So whether you upload the file here directly into the file repository or you upload a file into a conversation, they equally are accessible in that file repository later. So you might say, if we have 50 files that have been uploaded in their different conversation threads, how do I sort through and find all the files that have been uploaded? Well, it's very simple. You just go to the Files tab and you have all the files that are part of this team that you can easily access in one place. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually start replying to this, and I'm going to say, you know, I made some updates to this file. And then someone else might come in and they might comment and they might say that they made updates to this, and so they might have comments on this. And I have the ability now, I'm going to jump into this actual document. So we talked about adding files to a team, adding files through a conversation. We talked about adding cloud sources of documents. What I want to now move into is the ability to co-author and co-edit this type of a document. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up this file. And as I open up this file, it's opened up directly within the Teams viewer. So I can view this file directly within Teams. In addition, what I can also do is choose how I want to edit this file. So I've got 3 ways I can edit this file. I can edit it directly in Teams, so I can bring an online editor right into this Teams pane to be able to edit it directly here. I can also choose to go ahead and edit the document in Microsoft Word if I have that application on my desktop, or I can edit it in Microsoft Word online in the online editor of Microsoft Word. For this example, I'm going to show you the editing capabilities directly in Teams. So when I go ahead and edit this document in Teams, I have the ability that I would in Word to do all the things of editing. So I'm going to just jump in here and I'm going to add some information. I think one of my biggest blockers is my ability to type, so I apologize for my inability to type quite often, but I'm just going to add this other thing. So I've got a couple of things I can do here to facilitate this co-authoring. And I want to let you know that this is a live co-authoring environment. So I can be editing this. Someone else in the same team can also be logged in and editing this. So we can have 4, 5, 6 different people that are all collaborating and co-authoring and co-editing and co-updating the same document at the same time. So to facilitate that, there are a couple of things I can do. I can, one, start to add comments into this document. So while I'm editing, and I might be the one in charge of pulling this entire document together, but I'm not the one who's going to do all the pieces, right? So I might go in here into this section and I might want to insert a comment into that piece of it. So I'm going to insert a new comment here and I'm going to say, can someone from therapy insert additional So I'm going to go ahead and add that comment because I want someone else to instrument this. I want to add someone else to add this. So I have not only the ability to add comments and persist comments within the document so that someone working on the document, whether they're in Word Online or on the Word app, they will all be able to see this. We can all see all of these things at the same time. In addition, I also have the ability to pull up the conversational pane of the conversations that were posted in the conversational channel. So in addition to editing this, I can also on the side here do an @mention to a nurse that's on my team, and I can say, nurse Jazz in this case, need you to collaborate on this, please join the doc. And so I can go ahead and add this comment in the conversational pane because these comments are sitting within the Word document itself. But what I want to do is also be able to engage someone else, and I want their input urgently. So all of the capabilities that we had before are also here. So I can mark this as important. I can highlight this join the document piece in green. I can do all of those other things here as well so that I can engage other people in this process to be able to co-author and co-edit and join in this collaboration. So I can see the conversational pane tied to this document, the conversations that are part of the team's chat or channels. I can see comments that are posted in the document that might be specific references to changes that need to be made or additions that need to be made in the document. And then we all as a team have the ability to go into the document itself and start co-authoring, editing, together. So kind of multiple layers of how we can bring conversational, comments, co-editing, and co-authoring all together into kind of this one cohesive platform. So I don't have to go to 3 different places to catch up with all of this input. I had just one pane where I could view all of these things together coming cohesively to me as the user, making my work simpler, as opposed to me having to hunt email for some information, hunt a chat platform for something, look at my WhatsApp and my Facebook feed because someone else sent me a comment there, and then worrying about if my updates to something get deleted by someone else's updates. I now have a cohesive way of bringing these things together and interacting with this to make my job easier. So the one other thing I wanted to show you in addition to this, so I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to head back to the actual conversation pane here, and you can see this is where I'd added the additional comment for Nurse Jess to join this thread. What I'm also going to do is we have a couple other things in terms of the ability to be able to collaborate. So sometimes we're working within a specific document that we're trying to produce, like a member management document for payers, for example, or a FDA approval document that's going to a pharma company's FDA approval chain. So we all need to co-author and co-edit and co-collaborate to be able to create this unified document that has all these sources of input. That might be one way. Another way is that, especially when we have meetings and collaborations and discussions, it's not so much that we have a document that we're trying to produce together, but that we're trying to actually just bring our notes and our ideas together to be able to bring them into a cohesive place. So an example of doing that would be to be able to embed a wiki, to just be able to have a wiki against this home visits log. And so I can just quickly, as we're discussing or talking or even have a meeting for this group, we can go ahead and add a wiki here to say, let's say home visit issues and challenges. And so this is a simple way for us to just be able to document issues and challenges that we're seeing. You can do anything in this documentation from adding notes and comments and bulleted items to adding pictures and other things that you're doing. Even as people are remote and working with their mobile devices, they can go ahead and take pictures of things that they're observing and post those in here and add those to make this like a really good pane for us to be able to collaborate and gather input and share input. Equally, we could leverage Wiki, or we can also add a OneNote tab so that we can actually have notes that we're taking in OneNote. And I've already embedded a meeting notes tab that is, this is a wiki as well. So let me actually go ahead and add a OneNote tab in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this OneNote tab so we can show you how that works. So I'm just going to add the radiology meeting notes, and I'm going to save that as a tab here so that I can actually have this radiology notes tab directly here visible. And in this particular case, we have someone who's documented a case about an individual. I can add pages to this. I can add additional comments to this. So I have the ability to go ahead and have these documents persist in here. So in addition to having conversations where you post a document, files where you post files, that same Word document that we had, you can also add any Excel or Word document as a tab. So the interesting thing about this is that sometimes you want like a procedure manual or a thing that you follow regularly or a thing that you refer to very often. You may want that as a document or a file that you post into the team, but you want it to be available for quick reference without having to actually open it up and go in and find it. And so I can actually directly within this tab have this pane scale document posted. And obviously, to make it simpler for people to be able to access it, I can actually call this the pane scale monitor. And so anyone who's in a conversational pane who very quickly wants to refer to this, and so every time I visit with a patient, I might want to be able to show this picture so that people can say, yeah, I'm more like 7 than I am like 3, right? So having these kinds of procedural documents or reference documents accessed this way makes it very easy to just tab over to that pane instead of having to find the file and access it. So if there are a set of documents or set of procedures and a set of things that you want to make very easily accessible within the team, you have a simple way of being able to embed that as a tab within your team. So I want to pause there because I went through a lot of things around documents, and I obviously showed examples related to Word, but this can also equally work with Excel and PowerPoint documents as well that are embedded in here, or even PDF documents that are persisting in here. So I want to pause there and see if we've had any questions that have come up or any thoughts that this has coined. So I'll open it up, and Jaspreet and Michael, let me know if there are any questions that have arisen.
Yep, Srini, there are a lot of questions, like a lot. So let's see how much longer break do we need to take, and I'll go through, some of the questions, and we can probably address others later on. And
yeah, let's take maybe 5 minutes and jump through a handful, and then because we have so much more to cover from the rest of collab and availability and a bunch of other things. So yeah, let's take 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So first question here is a user wants to understand how permission works in Teams. For an example, if a user has read permission on SharePoint and is a member in Teams, how does this work?
That's a great question on SharePoint access. I actually, honestly, I don't know the details of exactly how access for specific files work. We can note that as a follow-up. What I will share with you is if I look at my team, the way I manage membership within my team is that I have owners of my team and guests of my team. And so all the members and guests of this team for files that are posted in here will have access to those files. And I think the question is if we have files that you want to limit access to, for some to just be read only and some to just be edit, then we'll need to follow that up with you, unless Michael or Jaspreet, you have something to add to that.
This is Mike. What was the question?
the question.
I'm answering all these other ones here by text. So
how do we manage permissions for documents in SharePoint, where someone might have read permissions and someone might have edit permissions?
Gotcha.
Those permissions transfer across into the Teams.
Yeah. So out of the box, on the underlying SharePoint just inherits a general. Everybody that's a member has both authoring, read, author, and write access. So if they're a member of the team, based off of the group access that's granted, they have full control, just like somebody who has full control in a doc library in SharePoint. You can go in and set specific permissions, but with the underlying SharePoint, you can do that, and you can certainly set up external libraries that are disassociated, but you reference them using either a tab or add cloud storage in the files area. So you can have ones with specific, very much the case, like if you have project documentation library where it's consumption of content and you use across multiple teams, you'd have it externalized and bring it in and set the permissions there. Right. Yep. So there's a lot that can be done there, but we had one other question that was kind of a follow-up on that around, are we ever going to do a file level permissioning native to Teams? And I just said that's kind of antithetical to what we're doing for collaboration. That's records management, right? So, all right, I'm going to shut up.
Great, Jaspreet. Let's move on to maybe a couple more questions real quick.
All right. So next one is, I would love to know more about categorizing teams. So for an example, right now we can follow or favorite, but once there are 20+ teams, there is no other way to organize them. Are there any options?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One of those is that we automatically try to suggest the teams that you're using regularly and bubble them to the top, or rather the teams that you haven't used in quite a while to move them down to the bottom as teams that you may not be as active in, to help kind of prioritize and move those along. As far as your teams go, you have the ability to move your teams in whatever order you want across the teams that you're a member of. So for example, here, if I see pediatrics as a team that I'm engaged in all the time, I can move that to the top of my thread. I can move this children's hospital over in priority above radiology. I can move the teams the way I view them in priority if I want to have some of my most common teams up top.
Right.
Another question?
So another one is, how does Teams work if a user directly deletes channel from SharePoint?
User deletes a channel from SharePoint. Well, the channel construct is a Teams construct. So if you're deleting a channel, you're adding or deleting that channel from a team standpoint. So if I go in to manage my team, then I have the ability within the management of the team to be able to add channels or remove channels or manage the channels. But the channels construct is a construct within Teams. Maybe I'm not understanding the question about the correlation with a channel being deleted from SharePoint.
Right. I'm just thinking, since like within SharePoint we create different folders for channels, but I think those folders just majorly have the files and documents. So I'm guessing if someone deletes that folder in SharePoint, it would delete the files in there, but the channel would kind of still exist in Teams. So
yeah, so it depends on the way that you've added the files into a share, like Michael was mentioning earlier. If I've uploaded the files in Teams, then the SharePoint that's created behind this team actually has the files in that specific SharePoint. If, on the other hand, I've added a cloud storage endpoint, which is a SharePoint endpoint, and that SharePoint endpoint is the one that has your folder structure, your documents, and how your documents are being segmented. And someone in that shared in that SharePoint endpoint has deleted a folder, then that folder gets deleted because it's actually plugging into a cloud storage endpoint that's plugged into here. So it depends on the way that the file has been added, depending on what'll happen.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions around when are the private channels coming?
That I'll actually defer to our Enterprise Connect announcements on when those are coming. I don't have a definitive timeline on that. It's actually one of the most asked features within Teams, something that we're working on very aggressively. And so I do not have any kind of timeline to share with you, but know that it's one of the top priority things that we're working on. And then, you know, there'll definitely be more information about that coming in the near future.
Okay, let's take maybe one more. So can you talk briefly about the ability to link a channel from one team to another team? Is it available today?
No, we don't really have the ability to be able to link the channel to another channel. We have the ability to follow a channel. I would love to understand a little bit more about the use case and what is really being accomplished by linking channels together in order to really be able to answer that, because there may be another way to think about that construct of being able to tie together. Is it because there are conversation threads that both team members need to see? Is it because there are different answers? If you're saying that there are two different teams and two different channels, and you want to segment the people that see them, but some people need to be part of both channels, then that's a different answer than you want entire visibility for everyone from both teams to both channels. And so it really depends on the construct there. So we need to dive much deeper into the specific use case to be able to address how we would handle that.
All right. Yeah, I think that would probably go into the conversation of creating a private versus a shared channel or something like that.
Exactly. Yep. It dovetails into that concept. So let me, because we have so much more to cover, let me just continue on, and then I'll after this next section, we'll give it another break so we can address some more questions. So now that we've kind of talked about documents and document onboarding and documents engaged within this conversation thread, what I want to then move on to is it really is helpful in order to be able to share things and collaborate with someone if you have knowledge of their availability and if you know their presence. So one of the other capabilities in Teams is the ability, as I'm showing here, to be able to share my availability. So this is again self-shared availability, but it does tie into when you have meetings, it will automatically mark you as busy. When you're presenting within a Teams meeting, it'll show you as do not disturb. And so this presence is connected to what you're actually doing. But I have the ability to then be able to say that I'm I'm away, I'll be back, do not disturb. In addition to that, I also have the ability to actually set a status message. And so the status message might be like out of office. I'll just do the oof for next 5 days, come back. So if I set that message, and I can choose the timeline that I want to set that for, and I can also customize that to, you know, a time range that I want, or I can set it always until I unset it myself in kind of a manual setting. So I can go ahead and set that as a status message, and now this displays for everyone that's trying to send me a message. So when they go to type a message to me, it'll automatically pop up for them that I am, you know, my status message will pop up right above the message, so that they know that I've got an out of office message in, so that they know that, you know, I won't be able to access or respond to them, and they'll know right away that maybe there's someone else they should send that message to. And I also have the ability within this to be able to actually denote someone else as my backup. One of the features that we're working on down the road is the ability to actually be able to mention another person within this, so that you can actually identify someone as a delegate in your absence, so that people know when they're messaging you to just be able to message your alternate. So that's another capability that we're working on right now that will be coming out later in the year. So now we have context. We know when someone's on or off or available or busy, and so we can see someone's status. And when we're trying to send them a message, we'll know, like for example, here I can see Nancy. It shows that she's away. And so depending on where people are, I could see that they're either online or away. And specifically here with Dr. Josh, I could see that he hasn't even logged in yet. And so he hasn't even connected with this team. So I have awareness of that. And then I can see Dr. Sally is fully available here. So I can go ahead and message her right now and know that I can access her. So we have the ability to be able to persist availability and presence. The other piece to availability is another module in Teams that we just made available, is the notion of a lot of our work sometimes tends to revolve around different schedules or different shifts. So we have a module within Teams called shifts. I'm just going to show this capability to you. So the ability to take your team, and this could be an IT help desk team, this could be a remote support team, this could be a first line workers team, it could be any kind of team. So I have the ability to take all my team members. So you can see this is my radiology team. I'm actually a member of multiple teams, so if I wanted to switch to different teams, I can do that. But as part of the radiology team, we've got a group of doctors here and nurses, and then some special ward duty and pre-op duty roles. And so we have the ability to then be able to define shifts for all these individuals. And so this could work. Again, this is the use case here is doctors and nurses, but this could equally work for manufacturing workers. We've got lots of people using the shifts capability to dole out on-call schedules for IT support and help desk to manage how they're managing their support. This could be for manufacturing workers in a manufacturing working line, so you can manage all of the different roles and role types. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how easy it is to be able to copy a schedule from a prior week to this week. In fact, I'm going to go back to March, and then I'm going to copy a whole bunch of schedules over. I'm going to copy the notes, the activities, the shifts, the open shifts. I'm going to post all those in. So now I now have all of these shifts copied in. And so now I have the ability to be able to see people and their schedule. So I can see when Dr. Watt's working, when Dr. Patel is scheduled, when Tony Sanders is working. So I can see all of my doctors, and I can also see all of my nurses' shifts. I can see who's scheduled for what shift. I'm flexibly able to color this and code this in different ways. For example, for nurses, we've kind of done this regular day shift, a regular evening shift, and a regular night shift. They're all color coded different, so it's easy to see what shifts you have. And so a simple way to be able to manage this and see who's all working when, you have the ability to plan this on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or even a monthly basis to be able to look at this. And the best part of really having this schedule capability is that you now give people on their mobile app, easy visibility to the schedule. So what I want to do is just jump over, I'm going to pull out my mobile phone so I can show you what the mobile experience looks like. So you can actually see this experience working on a mobile device. So let me just share my screen very quickly here. As soon as my screen sharing comes across, I'll share that with you. So I'm going to jump into my team here. And so, of course, I'm in a dev environment, so it always pops up different updates that are coming through. But here in it, I have my all of my chat conversations that you were seeing before, all of my teams that I'm a member of, and in fact, the ordering that I did, I reordered Children's Hospital and Pediatrics above in priority because those are the most important channels that I'm a part of, and that same ordering persists back on the mobile as well. So we keep that parity between desktop and mobile. And then I have my shifts here. So I have the ability here to have knowledge of all the shifts that I'm scheduled for, all the ones that are posted for me, and I can interact with these schedules and very quickly see, hey, who else is working alongside me? I can also request a swap or offer this shift to a different member of my team. So I can go ahead and select my shift, select my team member shift. So I want to go swap with someone for another day. So I can very quickly on mobile and flexibly be able to do this. And this goes through the process of actually asking my teammate to see if they could swap. If they agree to swap, then it goes to the manager for approval. And if the manager approves, then everyone's shift gets swapped and updated. And similarly, I can also ask for swap requests, ask for an open shift, time off request, and I, as a manager of this team, can also add shifts and add availability to shifts. So it makes it very flexible for me from a mobile device to be able to look at and see who else is working alongside me so that I can message the right people at the right time and the right roles to make sure that I'm getting to the people within context with the information that I need. So that's the capability of shifts. So in addition to just having the presence information of whether I'm available or out of office or an out of office note, I also have the ability to be able to persist people's scheduled information so I can access them, the right people at the right time. The other piece that's interesting here, and I'll just do this on mobile since I'm already displaying my mobile device. We talked about this briefly before, that when we talk about collaboration, it's not just about documents, it's really about making information available, whether that's knowledge bases or FAQs or other procedure manuals, or in this case, this bot that is able to look up information about a diagnosis code. So I'm just going to use this bot here to show you how this works. So I'm just going to type search codes, and in this case, I'm going to search for edema. I know something about this, but I don't know enough about this. And so this is the example of how I can take information that resides within my organization today that sits statically within documents or knowledge bases that you have to kind of troll through in order to be able to find the information that's relevant to you, and really moving them out of a static context into this kind of dynamic context where you let the Azure bot service do the work for you. And so you'll see here very shortly, nothing found. Of course, I typed something wrong. Let me do. So I'm going to search a different code. I think I might have typed something in edema orbit wrong. So very quickly it returned there. You can see all of the responses for myocardial. This is just a very simple bot. It's not very natural language enabled, but this is just a starting point of a bot of taking procedures or documents or resource lists and making them very accessible for people in a very simple chat and mobile construct, so that they're not having to always go back to a document or a workbook that they have to reference in order to be able to see something, but instead they have a very dynamic way of engaging with this information. And so the Azure bot framework that enables that is that is able to be accessed via Teams can be used for any kind of knowledge base, for any kind of FAQ, for any kind of information. One other piece I wanted to show you, and I'm actually going to switch back to my desktop version of this. So let me minimize this so I can show this back to you in the desktop. So just to show you some of the extensibility capabilities that make it easy for you to engage with a application. There's another extensibility capability like this weather extension that's available here. It's called a compose extension. So in addition to just like having stickers and jiffies, I have this other thing here called the weather little compose extension. So instead of having to go to the weather app, going there to search for information to get the responses from it, I've got a very native way right here to be able to search for the weather in Seattle, for example. So I can actually just pick the weather in Seattle and I can say, hey, and I can mention, one of my doctors that's based out there, and I can just make this a conversational thing that I just pass on to someone in a conversation. So think of this as a construct that, let's say you've got procedure libraries or document libraries or things that you want to be able to access, but you want to make them accessible in this extensible kind of format to be able to bring context to your conversation and post information about it directly in a conversation thread like this. You could enable this compose extension. This is just a simple one with weather, but this could be tying back to any other information source you have. So it could actually tie into a SharePoint backend that you have, or into another web backend that you have, or an intranet backend that you have. And so I, as the user of this, can then interact with it and then click in to go to get more information about that specifically. So this could tie back into your intranet site or your SharePoint site or things like that. So just showing you another way. So we've got kind of this bot construct. We have this compose extension construct. And then I think I already showed you this ability to be able to embed tabs within Teams. So you've got tab constructs to be able to embed tabs. And then what we also have within this is that from a tab capability, you not only can embed any HTTPS website you have within your organization. So this could be an intranet, it could be a secure site that you have. You can embed SharePoint sites, but really also you can embed any planner site that you want, or you can create a planner site that is tied to this. So I'm not actually going to go through with this because I already have a planner site here that I want to show you that's tied into a BI dashboard as we move into this conversation about how you embed a Power BI dashboard and make it easy to be able to access dashboard insight directly next to what you're doing. I also want to show you from a tab perspective how you can embed a form. So very easy to be able to embed a form. So if a standard part of your process is that you're navigating a specific set of things and that you always need to be able to enter this type of information, and especially important for people that are remote, that you might be doing a site survey as you're remote, but you need to enter these details, but it's always in this construct of this form. I'll show you an example of how you can leverage forms to be able to instrument information. So in this particular case, we have a tumor board nomination form. And so in this tumor board nomination form, which we built, which you can build directly from Teams as you click in and add a form, we just enter in some information about the name of the patient, the name of the referring physician, the requested month of a multidisciplinary team or a tumor board meeting, and then we can add some other information about this. And you can instrument this with as many items as you want in the form as you would like, or keep it as simple as you want in terms of minimizing its complexity. So that you can then make it very simple for someone who is doing this to just be able to quickly, either on mobile or on this experience, to be able to say, okay, name of patient is Joe Diggs, I'm the referring physician, and then I want to request this for, say 5/1/2019. And then I'm gonna, these are again dummy items in here. These don't necessarily tie to this specifically, but you can instrument this form however you want. And you can add free form tests, you can add multiple choice, you can add yes, no. So all of the capabilities that you would want in a form you can do, and you can instrument and format it so that only certain inputs can be accepted. So if you need to delimit input into a very specific format, you can do that as well within this forms construct. So then I can go ahead and say, I need to review this case quickly, and I can go ahead and submit the form, and then now that form has been submitted. So I can go ahead and go back to creating another form. So simplifying this ability to get input, seek input, get input in a very structured format that you want to be able to gather it. And then also, once you have this input, then what we'll talk about the next phase, which is how do you then embed dashboards that take this input and make it into a Power BI dashboard that's visible. So that's kind of the next phase. So I'm going to take a pause here. We've kind of gone another 30 or 25 minutes, and then let's see if there are any questions that we want to address for a few minutes.
Yes, again, a lot of questions. So I think a couple of questions are around the shifts capability. So, you know, people are asking, is it available today, how they can activate it or how they can use it?
Yeah, so the shifts capability is generally available. We actually made it generally available to all Teams users as of January of this year. If your apps are not turned on, or if someone within your Office 365 tenant admin role has not provisioned access for shifts, you might want to check with them to make sure it's enabled. If they have enabled it for you, which in a lot of cases by default it is enabled, but it doesn't appear as one of the icons here on the left navigation bar. You just need to click on the ellipse, and underneath the ellipse you will see there's the shifts module. When you first log into the shifts module, the shifts are tied to a team. So it will ask you, it'll be blank, and it'll say if you're an owner of a team, it'll allow you to create a schedule or a shift. If you're not an owner of a team, it'll ask you to talk to an owner to be able to create a schedule that you can be a part of. So those are the two options. Either you're an owner of a team and then you can go ahead and create a schedule for your team, or you're a member of a team and then the owner of the team needs to create that schedule and invite you to it. And once they've created the schedule and added all of the members to it, then when you log in, you'll be able to see all of the shifts that are assigned to you.
Okay. Another question is, in the OneNote example that you showed,
Yes.
How do we tie this information back to the patient's record?
So very specifically about the patient record, in this example that I showed before, where there was some patient information, like this patient history, for example, this is not actually directly tied back to the patient's health record. This was specifically to support a tumor board use case where they wanted to, for the case of the tumor board, bring information from the medical record to persist in this experience for people to just be able to view it. They're not entering anything. In the next section, I'm actually when we talk about dashboards and BI, and I'll actually go through what we have in something that we've developed called the Patients app, which this is a very different thing. This actually is a Fire-based API resource that pulls medical information directly from the EMR record for you to be able to collate lists and to be able to identify their actual vitals and medications and allergies coming in from the medical record. Again, in this case, we're not writing the information back to the EMR, but our first notion, and the reason we're not writing it back is not because it's not feasible. The reason we're not writing it back is that the first thing we want to do is just be able to bring medical record visibility into the Teams construct. And so you can see there's a Fire-based query that pulls in actual medical record for these patients. These are all, again, anonymized dummy patients, but you can see their profile information, if they had medications or vitals information or details or observations or allergies, those would all persist in here. And again, I'll also show you how this is accessible in a mobile view so that as you're moving as a doctor from room to room, you can very quickly scan through different patients and then you can take notes against those patients. Now, these notes don't tie back to the electronic medical record, but they serve as a reminder for you as you go back to instrument your observations and notes in the electronic medical record for you to have digital notes that you can look at. So that's a much deeper conversation on the integration of this specific app called the Patients app that uses the Fire API, the HL7 Fire-based APIs to be able to pull information from a medical record into a collaborative construct. And we've seen a lot of organizations that are using this to really speed their way of collaborating within their team members, but not necessarily writing yet back to the EMR to update it with information that comes in here.
Okay, another follow-up on the shifts.
Yes.
Can you only access shift by going through, that menu you showed, or and you cannot pin shift to a particular team channel?
That is a often asked request to actually be able to go into the general channel and actually post the shifts app in here. So that's actually one of our #1 requests. Today, you're not able to do that. You actually go into the shifts module. However, I want to go back to the mobile experience because a lot of the people who are leveraging that shifts capability are people who are mobile, and so we do have the ability from the mobile experience to be able to persist that directly. Sorry, let me pull up my mobile screen here so you can see this. So we do have the ability in the mobile screen to be able to present the shifts. There is a reason why we don't post that shifts directly into a tab yet, and we're thinking through how best to do that. Because this notion of shifts is actually correlated to my shifts. It's not the team's shifts. These are actually my shifts that I'm scheduled for, right? So I'm only a doctor in radiology, so only the shifts that I'll see are mine in radiology. But we do have the ability, if you wanted to look at the entire cohort, to be able to see today on April 4th, who are all the people that are working in all the different roles. I can see that from a mobile construct very easily here. So we have that ability to be able to see that. And what we wanted to do, instead of having it posted in as a tab in Teams, really much more personalized and accessible for the individual as they go about their day in a mobile construct. So that's the reason why we haven't done that, but we do have the request for that. It is on our plans to be able to put a team version of the schedule viewed directly as a tab in a channel. I don't have any details to provide on a timeline of when that would be made available.
All right, going back to the document editing. So
yes.
The question here is, how about the chats within the Word or Excel app? Are they stored separately or where are they stored?
That's a good question. So as we were collaborating on this file, oops, sorry, wrong document. Let me close out of that one. Click too fast there. So if I go back to this pane scale document that we were working on, there are two things, right? So there's the conversation thread that's happening here. This is a Teams conversation thread. And then if I go in to edit this document, the actual comments that are posted here, if I view the comments here, these comments are actually posted and tied in Word to this document. So I have comments that are Word posted comments, part of the Word authoring, editing, reviewing capability that are posted in the document itself. And then I have a conversation thread that is related to this document that is a Teams conversation thread. So these comments here are stored in Word. These conversation threads are stored in Teams.
Okay. Another one is around the user activity in Teams. So what level of reporting, or logging exists on user activities? So for example, if someone deletes a tab or a wiki or some setting, then is there a way to see the team history or go back to the prior state?
Yes, so there is we're not going to be able to cover that. There's a whole suite of reporting and IT admin capabilities within the Teams admin portal. Within the Teams admin portal, you can see usage, you can see user access by user information, Teams information, usage across your tenant information. So there's a slew of information there, as well as some reporting capabilities that are within the Teams admin center, which is part of the Office 365 admin capabilities. We won't have a chance to go into that, but we could certainly do that as a follow-up to dive into more of those capabilities. Jaspreet, what I'll suggest in the interest of time, since we only have 20 minutes, and I really want to spend a little bit of time on the BI dashboards and how we can instrument BI dashboards to drive insight and engagement, I want to just go ahead and jump into that.
Sure.
So what I want to do is go over here into this children's hospital environment that I have. And within this children's hospital environment, again, I want to reiterate that though these examples are related to healthcare, the capability is available to be extended to manufacturing use cases, for research use cases, for lots of use cases. So please take this as one use case example of how it's being leveraged, but it can be used in lots of places. So one of the things that we've done within this to show two things is, one, within a hospital, it's very important to be able to review the quality of the operation of the hospital. And that usually centers around a handful of things like the sepsis risk, the falls risk, the quality compliance, and then pain management within the hospital. These are kind of 4 typical metrics that are leveraged within a hospital. So one of the things that we've done is we've brought in data about pain risk, fall risk, and sepsis risk into this BI dashboard. So you can very easily click on all of these and you can see incidents and reports against all of this. And so this data would probably have come from an EMR or for some other reporting system where you had the data where you were recording these types of incidents. So once you have those data points, whether that's in SQL or any format really, right? Because Power BI integrates with lots of different data formats, whether that's Excel or SQL databases or Azure databases or data lake stores. You can pull that insight and then bring it into a very easily viewable construct. And so you can say, if I want to know exactly what's happening within a particular area, then I can look at that. The additional piece we've done here is that we've taken this dashboard. And so Power BI in itself has the notion of being able to embed a map and to be able to see incidents tied against a geography. But in this case, we've actually taken a Visio diagram of a floor of the hospital and instrumented the incidents against that specific floor of the hospital. So if I wanted to see across this area of the hospital, if I unclick this specific delineation and I want to just see where am I having all the falls risk? And I can see some of these anomalies start to pop up where I see that I have all of these falls that are happening on the west wing of my hospital. That might lead me to question, is that related to sunset glare, something else that's causing falls? Are people not able to see something, or is the time of day when we're doing cleanings on this just an inopportune time so that people are slipping and falling? So I might look at this and be able to derive some insights that say I need to go do something. And so insights are great, but the real value is once you've obtained some insights, then to be able to action someone to be able to go do something against it. And so that's where the ability to embed a planner or a task management platform tied to something like a dashboard really comes in handy. So related to that falls risk, what I've done is I've created this planner board against all my different risks, right? So patient error handling, sepsis risk, falls risk. So against falls risk specifically, what I've noted is that because I saw that there was a higher incidence on the western wing of the hospital, I've added a task in here and I've assigned it to a couple of my nurses and my nurse practitioners to say, go in please and start to record the time of day of falls, because we want to see if there's a correlation on this west wing of falls related to time of day, which might lead us to then conclude that something literally is happening related to a time of day. Maybe it's glare, maybe it's sunlight, maybe it's something, maybe we need to do something with the window shades to be able to facilitate something better for patients. Or it could be related to document all the fall reasons. So today we only have the notion that someone fell. We don't know the severity, we don't know why they fell, we don't know what the collateral damage was because of their fall. And so we want to document some additional information. I can assign that to other people. So now, not only do I have the ability to have visibility to the dashboard, I now have the ability to instrument a set of actions against it. Now, when we talk about dashboards, there are multiple levels of dashboards. So we not only have the quality dashboard that's pulling that data together, but even within Planner, we have the ability to dashboard our completion of these tasks. So I can look at all of the tasks by category. I could see where we are in terms of completion and who has the most tasks outstanding. So I can even have reporting against tasks against my team to see who's completing them and who's not. And again, there's a demo scenario, so a lot of the tasks are not even started or completed, but I can also see which ones are late, which ones are in progress, which ones are lagging behind. I can also overlay a schedule view of this. And again, because I issued these tasks a couple months ago, I'm going to go back a couple months so I can see all the tasks overlaid on a calendar view, so I can get a dashboarding view of where my tasks are in terms of completion and which are outstanding. So I can have a really good sense, not only of the dashboard of the data, but also of the dashboarding of the actions that are pursuant to insight that's driving some kind of action. And then I can also engage all the people within a team meeting as an example, or I can engage specific actions here and notifications for people to say, hey, go back to the quality actions tab. Looks like a lot of people are not updating information or not following through on the actions we agreed to complete. So this notion of instrumenting insights, then tying that into a task management and planner capability to be able to make sure you're following up, to be able to have reporting even within that tasking pane within planner, to be able to see completion of tasks and where things are distributed and who's following through and who isn't. And then to also have that tied back into data that then fills this quality monitoring dashboard, right? So you can, when you actually make a change and you say, we're going to go do something different, like I'll take another example in this dashboard to be able to take off a falls risk, and I'm going to add sepsis risk. And now we'll see a different pattern emerge that on the north side of the hospital in section 4, we'll see that there's a higher incidence of sepsis. And so sepsis risk is typically tied to how frequently clinicians and patients really wash their hands. And so as we pull this information up, you'll see that there's a higher incidence of red or orange right in here. And so we might get intuition that it might be better to install another antibacterial station in this region. And then as we install that antibacterial station and we continue to get reports, we can see how making that change has actually impacted over time the evaluation of sepsis in this area. So you can actually have a 360-degree loop that ties all that back in. Similarly, kind of we mentioned this notion of forms before, so you can do the same thing with forms. And so we actually have a specific use case here where someone, I was telling you about this tumor board nomination process. So someone had this tumor board nomination, so they had people fill out this form for nominations. When the tumor board was complete, they had someone finish out the completion of the tumor board with this recommendation form that was also submitted. So when was the date the issue first presented? When do we provide the plan to the patient? When was the first treatment actually issued? What was the type of the issue? What was the stage of the issue? What was the treatment plan? Now we can use both the data that came from the first nomination and the exit survey, if you will, to be able to then instrument a tracker against this, to actually be able to look at what is our cadence and our ability to engage with patients within this. What is our speed of engagement from day of first diagnosis to day of treatment? So if I look at stage 4 cancers, for example, I can see that on stage 4 cancers, we're actually doing pretty well, right? We're within 3 to 4 days of responding to stage 4 cancer, which is good in terms of how we're progressing. And so this is a weekly view where we're seeing a week over week average of how we're progressing with remediating issues related to stage 4 cancer. And so this notion that I have dashboards, I can have forms that inform and provide data to fill up dashboards, and then I can have a task management or a planner tool set to be able to instrument actions coming out of dashboards, so that over time we can start to see how the actions we're taking actually impact the way that we're operating. And so really kind of bringing that 360-degree view to ability to engage and having an engagement platform from a chat and a collaboration and a viewing perspective to bring all of these into synchronicity for the user. So I'll stop there and I'll kind of open up maybe the last 7 minutes or so for any questions that have come through on this or any of the areas that we've discussed today.
Sure. Yep. As usual, a lot of questions, and we can go back to a couple of questions that we missed before. But on
Sure.
the current section, the question is chat encrypted in transit and in place for phones?
Yes. Not only in addition to all of your chat conversations being encrypted in transit and at rest, in addition, in chat conversations, there's actually a really important distinction for us to call out. I don't know why my phone is not mirroring now. Let me try that again. In addition to a chat being encrypted, oh, something's going on. We also have images are encrypted. So in transit and at rest. So actually, when you think about the way Teams allows you to be a flexible platform to communicate, any images that you've sent like this, so if you were taking a picture of a patient and we're denoting something that's happening and highlighting a specific thing that's a big issue, we allow you to take a picture, we allow you to annotate that picture, you can send that. That image sent from a mobile device never stores on your phone's photo gallery. It is encrypted at rest and in transit on your mobile device, just in the Teams application, so that you can securely send pictures. And that is independent of whether you have Intune or Azure Active Directory driving some level of mobile device management or mobile device mobile application management. Natively within Teams, not only the chat, but also pictures are stored encrypted at rest and in transit.
All right. Another question is, can you visualize multiple plans from Planner in Power BI?
It's not really that you're visualizing plans from Planner in Power BI, but rather that you have a Power BI which has some operational, clinical, pharmaceutical, payer data. Right, so you're aggregating data from somewhere of some sort, and you're using that to drive insights using Power BI. And so once you have those insights, then you're embedding a planner next to it to be able to encode actions and track the actions of what you're going to do to change something you've seen in a Power BI dashboard. So you could actually export the data from Planner to create a Power BI out of that also. But there are enough capabilities within Planner to be able to see reporting against how the actions are progressing that I don't know of very many use cases where that's being leveraged that way, but it's something you could potentially explore if that's of relevance.
All right, great. Going back, a couple of questions we missed before is when you add the cloud storage sources, what does that do to the documents stored in Dropbox? Are they updated in Teams? Are these cloud storage options just shortcut to those documents?
That's right. So you have two ways of doing those things. When you add a cloud storage endpoint, you're actually accessing the documents in that endpoint. Now, you could actually bring those documents into the Teams construct and remove them from that endpoint, but this actually allows you to collaborate and use the documents in that existing endpoint, just like you would in SharePoint. When you embed a SharePoint endpoint, you're actually accessing the documents that sit in that endpoint, and the documents sit in that endpoint still. But if you wanted to bring those documents out of there and you wanted to copy them or download them or pull them into a Teams construct independent of where they sit in their endpoint, you can also do that. So in terms of actually migrating the experience, if you wanted to migrate from a box experience to actually a full Teams experience and just have everything resident within Teams, then you can bring those documents in and upload them into the Teams construct so you have them here independent of, and then you can get rid of the other cloud storage instance if you so desired.
All right. So another question is regarding the group calendars. So currently the Teams does not create a shared Outlook online calendar. So is it going to be available soon, or?
That's another request that we've had quite a bit of interest in, is this notion of just like we have within Outlook calendar, the group calendaring functionality. I think we did make an announcement at our Enterprise Connect event, and we can make sure we share the links to that to you, where we talked about what we're doing with calendar integration as a starting point. In terms of the group calendar integration, that might be that's something I would expect is further down the road. But we are working on trying to bring cohesiveness between the meetings, schedule information that sits in Teams and within the Outlook calendar functionality. So you should certainly see more of that information coming in the coming months.
Right. I think those are the questions that I had, and I don't know, Michael, if I missed any, because there is a lot of chat going on. Otherwise, we can move towards the end.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter going back and forth. We had, I will say, we've had questions specifically for a number of things around Planner itself and others. And just to let everybody know, we are scheduling our next round of webcasts. We're not going to do whole week segments moving forward. We did that for SharePoint and for Teams because they're so big and cover so much. But we are going to have things coming up. We are scheduling things with the Planner team. We are scheduling things with the Stream team for both on-demand and live events, and a number of other features. So if you have requests, I have at the end of this session, we'll be posting, all the recording. There is a survey. Ask us, what do you want to see us, do? And we also had requests for how-tos, actually building out in Teams specific scenarios, kind of step by step. So we have that. So we'll go ahead and we'll make sure we schedule either that or on-demand content that we'll post.
Yeah, and we already have, Michael, just to add to that, we already have a lot of videos that have already been created that are usability videos that kind of walk you through how to do X or Y or Z. So we should certainly make a lot of that content that we have as part of our playbooks available so that people can access those and do some self-training, self-learning on that. But certainly glad to set up a deeper session and walk through. And I think that the real key for me really is when these pieces start to come together to knit together a use case for an industry. And so that's another piece that we're looking to build, is to showcase some of the demos of how you put together a use case for a particular industry, so you can start to show the different components of that process and how Teams as the digital hub exposing the other capabilities of Office can become your one-stop shop to be able to enable a workflow. Okay, with that, I suggest, since we have just a couple of minutes, that I'll turn it back over to you, to Jaspreet, and to Michael to go ahead and close out the session today. Thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to spend this time with you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you as we innovate and leverage this platform that we have of Microsoft Office 365 and Teams.
Thank you, Srini. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. And a couple of next steps or call to action is, I know we have a lot of questions around where this recording would be available, or where do you go for trainings and more links and resources and everything that Srini mentioned today. We'll make sure that we have all those information available, and you can get that through our Microsoft Healthcare and Life Sciences blog, again at aka.ms/HLS blog. That's where you'll find all the information from all these sessions in this week, and more coming up. But there were some specific questions in the chat around, if it's some certain like shifts or any other capabilities activated or not, or if you can use it. So definitely reach out to your current account teams or your tenant admins for any specific questions, and you can give them reference to our this webcast. That's where you heard about it. And next thing is, like, feel free to share or connect with us. There are we'll share out the LinkedIn addresses for our profiles. And if you have any questions, any ideas, as Mike mentioned before, please share those out on the blog as well. So again, join us for tomorrow's session. We'll be diving down into more of use cases around secure messaging, mobile usage, and mobile security. So a lot of fun things tomorrow, last Friday session, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you, everyone.